What's going on, guys? This is Sam, and today we are going to be reviewing the iPhone X. This phone is incredible. I'm an iPhone fan in general, so when I saw the iPhone X initially, so excited to get my hands on it. And I want to tell you what I love, what I'm not a big fan of, and whether or not I think you should be buying this phone, because it's expensive. It's $1,000, and it's probably not the phone for everyone. If you take a look at the iPhone X in comparison to older phones, or even the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 8 Plus, the biggest change without question is the 5.8-inch Super Retina display on the front. Now, that's just a marketing term, but when you actually look at the screen, it is phenomenal. It's the first time we've ever seen OLED on a portable Apple product, and OLED means that the pixels can go completely dark. So rather than seeing an LCD screen recreating what black should look like, that usually ends up looking a little bit too blue, this is a true black color. Android phones like the Galaxy S8, the Pixel, have had this for a while now, but we finally got it on the iPhone, and it is incredible. Now, a big difference with this OLED display in comparison to something on Android is that this has True Tone, which means that the shade of white that you're looking at is going to change depending on the environment around you. And if you don't like this feature, you can just go into settings or control center and turn it off. The way that True Tone works is that if you're in a cooler lighting condition like the room I'm in right now, the screen is going to appear a little bit more blue. Not like blue as in the color, but shades of white. If you're in a really warm lighting condition, lots of oranges and yellows, the screen is going to become a little bit more orange and yellow. It works like a piece of paper. If you hold a piece of paper under cool light, the paper is going to appear a little bit cooler. If you hold a piece of paper under really warm lighting conditions, the piece of paper is going to look warmer, a little bit more yellow. And that's exactly how the iPhone screen works, and it works really well. I really like it. Another thing that I really like about the new Retina screen on the iPhone X is how natural the colors look. They're not muted like the Pixel 2, they're not oversaturated like the Samsung Galaxy S8. And it's funny how Apple has created their own version of Samsung's screen, because Apple got these screens on the iPhone X from Samsung because they're one of the biggest OLED suppliers in the world. But there's something that Apple's done here that makes it look so much better than what Samsung has done and what Google has done. It's pretty much the perfect mix between oversaturated colors on the Galaxy S8 and muted colors on the Pixel XL2. I have no complaints. It looks natural, it looks normal, and I think it's exactly how an OLED screen should look. As soon as I show someone the iPhone X, the first comment they'll make is, where's the home button? What happened to that? And then, oh, what happened to Touch ID? And those are two really big questions that a lot of people have about the iPhone X. How do you use it without a home button, and how do you get into your phone securely? Do you have to just enter your passcode? You've probably heard something about Face ID. I want to talk about that in just a little bit, but first I want to talk about the lack of a home button, because for me, it's a lot better this time around than it has been on any iPhone ever. I really like that there's no home button. New swipe gestures are Apple's answer to the lack of a home button. If you're inside of an app, to close out, you just swipe up from the bottom of your screen. If you want to go to the multitasking view or the app switcher, you swipe up and hold in the middle of your screen. You can switch back and forth between apps by sliding along the bottom of the phone. Control center is in the top right on the right side of the notch, and notification center or the cover sheet is on the top left on the left side of the notch. It's kind of annoying that control center isn't at the bottom of the screen, but at the same time, you get used to it. You have to shimmy the phone to get into your control center, but because of the glass back, the phone is pretty grippy for me, and I haven't had an issue with dropping this phone at all. A lot of people really don't seem to be sold on the whole idea of swiping to do everything, but it's so natural, it's so intuitive. The motion design system on the iPhone X is fluid, and it feels like something we should be doing. When I go back to something like an iPhone 8 or the Pixel 2 or even the Galaxy S8, having to force press on the home button or click it feels archaic, and I know it's kind of an extreme word to use, but you get so used to these swipe gestures that anything else doesn't feel as fun or as good. The biggest change on the iPhone X between the huge new screen and the lack of a home button is Face ID. The fingerprint sensor is gone. There is not one on the iPhone X. That has been replaced with Face ID, which is this biometric facial scanning technology that I would argue is the future of mobile security. If you're someone who loves to embrace new technology, then you're gonna love Face ID. I like it better than Touch ID because it feels more automated to me. If you're someone that doesn't trust Face ID, you don't think it's the future, you think Touch ID should have been on the iPhone X, nothing I say in this video is gonna convince you differently because you've already made up your mind. I will say this, if you don't trust Face ID, just give it a try. Go into an Apple store, try to set it up, and try to open your mind to the possibility that Touch ID isn't the best form of biometric authentication. Because I gave Face ID a try and I was a little bit skeptical, but as soon as I started using it, being able to take your phone, go like this, and see the unlock animation happen, swipe up, you're into the phone, is cool. It feels like the future, looking at your phone and the phone telling you without you even interacting with it, that you're you, that you're unlocking your own phone is cool. You don't even have to put your fingerprint on it. It looks at your face and it says, that is Sam. He can get into his own phone. And it feels like something out of a movie. There's no other way to describe it. I really like it. I've never had an issue where someone else could get into my phone using their face. That being said, if you have an identical twin or someone that looks extremely, extremely similar to you, there's a good chance that they will be able to get into your phone using Face ID. So if you have an identical twin or a sibling or someone that looks one-to-one pretty much exactly like you, there's a good chance they can get into your phone, and that is a flaw with Face ID. But if you don't have an identical twin or someone that looks really similar to you, you're gonna be fine. I've never had an issue where someone else could unlock my phone. Another crazy statistic that Apple shared about Face ID is that with Touch ID, there's a 1 in 50,000 chance of a random person on the street being able to come up to you and scan their fingerprint into your phone, and they could get into your phone, 1 in 50,000. Apple says that with Face ID, that number goes up to 1 in 1 million, which is insane. So if you're in a crowd of 1 million people, one person there will be able to use their face to get into your phone. Where with Touch ID, if you're in a crowd of 50,000 people, one person there will be able to get into your phone using their fingerprint. I believe it's more secure. Apple tells us it's more secure. It captures more data points on your face than Touch ID would capture in a fingerprint, and I trust it. It's not a perfect system yet. It does fail every once in a while from time to time, and it is a little bit slower than Touch ID, but I think this is a really good first step, and I will take Face ID over Touch ID any day now if it means not having a home button or a weird fingerprint sensor on the back. If this had a fingerprint sensor on the back, I would hate it. Face ID is the perfect solution to that for me, and I would say if you're skeptical, you just gotta trust it. Let's talk about cameras on the iPhone 10. You have dual 12 megapixel shooters here, 4K 60 frames per second video, or you can do 4K 30 frames per second. The cameras on the iPhone 10 are so good. They're so amazing. I did this really in-depth camera comparison between the Samsung Galaxy S8 and the Google Pixel 2. The Google Pixel 2 does this really natural approach. The Galaxy S8's camera falls short in between the iPhone 10 and the Pixel 2, but the iPhone 10 does this minor image processing after you take a photo for deeper colors, and I really like the way that looks. The Pixel 2 has these beautiful natural photos, and I think objectively that's the best camera, but personally, I love the photos coming out of the iPhone 10. I like them better on the iPhone 10 than on any other phone that I'm using right now. Video is also really good. You can change the way it's recorded to do 4K 30 frames per second or 4K 60 frames per second. This is pretty much the only phone that will record 4K at 60 FPS. So if that's something that you're interested in, you'll probably want to get the iPhone 10. It all looks really great. The only place that the iPhone 10's camera falls noticeably short is with image stabilization. When you're walking around, it just seems wonky and it's trying to focus, but the stability is also struggling at the same time when you're walking. If you're standing still, totally fine. Absolutely amazing, the best video camera on a phone today. But with stabilization, the Google Pixel 2 kills it and the iPhone 10 falls a little bit behind. Powering the new cameras and the new OLED screen and Face ID on the iPhone 10 is the A11 bionic chip. It's the exact same one that Apple's using in the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 8 Plus, and hands down the fastest chip that I've ever used in a phone, right alongside the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 8 Plus. I use an Android phone like the Galaxy S8 and I'm still experiencing lag and slowdowns on the latest version of Android in 2017, and I use iOS 11 on the iPhone 10 and it is like butter. It doesn't slow down. It's never like the phone you have to wait for it to load something or you're like, gosh, this is just really slow today. The phone is always waiting on you to do something else on top of what it's already doing, and I can't say enough good things. Apple's engineering team has done something with the A11 bionic chip that they've never done before, and you can see it and notice it every single day because it powers every interaction and it makes you feel like you're using this device from the future. Something else about the A11 bionic chip that Apple has changed the game with is battery life. For years, I saw Android phones making these really big batteries and the phones wouldn't die throughout the day. They would last forever. I experienced that with the Galaxy S8, had great battery life. I'm experiencing that with the Google Pixel 2. The battery life is just off the charts. But for me with the iPhone 6, 6S, 7, 5 and 5S even before that, it would consistently die before the end of the day no matter what I did. It was just my usage being too heavy on the device. With the iPhone 8, it was the best battery life ever. It usually didn't die before the end of the day. With the iPhone 10, it has yet to die before the end of the day, and I use my phone a lot. I make tech videos on my phone consistently throughout the day. There's something that Apple's done with the bigger battery inside this phone that is better than iPhone 8 Plus battery life, better than iPhone 8 battery life. If you want good battery life, spend $1,000 and buy the iPhone 10. If that is your number one problem with the iPhone, like it was for me, battery life on the iPhone 10 is 10 out of 10. It's incredible, and it is my favorite thing about this phone. To wrap this review up, the iPhone 10 is the best phone I've ever used. And I'm biased because I've been an iPhone user. So if you're still dead set on Android, don't get the iPhone 10. This thing does not run Android. Get the Pixel 2. If you want iOS, if you're looking for something different and you've been using Android, or you have something like the iPhone 6, 6S, or iPhone 7, the iPhone 10 costs $1,000, so you have to decide whether or not that is worth it to you. For me, the best battery life on an iPhone ever, the best looking OLED screen I've ever seen, some of the best cameras I've ever used, and Face ID along with a really fast processor make this phone worth $1,000 for me. This is actually the 256GB version, so it's worth $1,200 to me. If you don't want all of that, if you don't want the best of the best, don't get the iPhone 10. If you don't want to learn new swipe gestures, if you still want Touch ID, go with the iPhone 8. That's also an amazing phone, or even the Pixel 2 on the Android side of things. But if you're asking me and you wanted to buy the best phone on the market right now, I'd buy the iPhone 10. Even if I had a Galaxy S8, a Note 8, a Pixel 2, a OnePlus 5, and an iPhone 8 Plus in front of me, if I have $1,000 to spend on a phone, the iPhone 10 is the best way to spend that money.